Get Brexit Done was a blindfold. It was earmuffs. It was an invitation to ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. But when Brexit got done, you take the blindfold off. You take the earmuffs off. And it takes you a little while to reacclimatise, I think. It takes you a while. You sort of you give your earlobes a bit of a tug and give it. What do you do when you rub your eyes a bit and you haven't quite noticed this and you haven't quite noticed that? And then along comes Andrea Leadsom and Owen Paterson, like a sort of Jack and Jill of political incompetence, one of whom has behaved in an appalling fashion and refused to admit it or acknowledge it, and one of whom is prepared to introduce an amendment to the House of Commons designed not only to let him off the hook, but also to rip up the entire rule book put in place to combat corruption. And they've fallen under the spell of the Get Brexit Done slogan as well, because they prorogued Parliament. They defended Dominic Cummings when he drove to Barnard Castle and back. So whether consciously or subconsciously, they think they can get away with murder, metaphorically speaking. That's happened to them as well. So it's not just the voters who had these blindfolds and these earmuffs on. These politicians, particularly the less intelligent ones, have also ended up in a place, whether consciously or unconsciously, where they believe they can do anything. Johnson's been like that all his life. His sense of entitlement comes from, I don't know, his DNA or his background, his education or his personality, I know not. But for the rest of them, this is an assumed sense of entitlement. Some of us are born entitled. Some of us achieve entitlement, and some of us have entitlement thrust upon us. I think this lot, in a sense, have had entitlement thrust upon them by the Get Brexit Done slogan, under which they could do anything. They could lie to the Queen under the Get Brexit Done slogan. So the idea that they could rip up the anti-corruption rulebook, it seen through this lens, becomes relatively innocuous. I don't think they actually slap each other on the back in the Garrick Club and say, well, what are we going to do next, lads? We lied to the Queen last year. Let's rip up the anti-corruption rulebook this year. I think it's just a sort of almost an osmosis of corruption passing from the top down, actually, a sort of trickle down of moral corruption, culminating in the idea that 250 MPs could march through the lobby marked, we'll be marking our own homework in the future, thank you very much, and the rest of you can sod off. They march through that particular lobby and think they're going to get away with it. Why? Because we got away with everything else. Question, why did you get away with everything else? Answer, because it all got filed under Get Brexit Done. But Brexit got done. And you're not ready yet, perhaps, to recognise or acknowledge that it bears no resemblance whatsoever to what these shysters and charlatans promised you. That day will come. That day edges ever closer. Reality can only ever be postponed. It can never be permanently denied. But you are ready to say, Owen Paterson taking £500,000 off a couple of companies that he then lobbied government for, that didn't get Brexit done. That's got nothing to do with Brexit. And suddenly, like the sun coming over the horizon after a dark and dismal night, you understand why people like Charles Moore, disgracefully, and why people like David Davis disingenuously tried to bring Brexit back into it. There it is. We got there in the end, an hour and a quarter into the programme. Why were they bringing Brexit back into it? Because Brexit was the blindfold. Brexit was the earmuffs. Brexit was the thing that you could say, and then the public would go, all right, carry on. Or the supporters would give you the free pass. You drove to Barnard Castle to test your eyesight. Of course you did. Of course you flipping didn't. Brexit! Oh, no, you did. You did, actually. You sent Jacob Rees-Mogg to Balmoral to mislead Her Majesty the Queen. That's absolutely a Brexit. Oh, no, that's absolutely fine. As you were, good old Jacob, doff cap, tug forelock. You prorogued our Parliament. That is the most constitutionally corrupt thing that any government has done in living. Brexit! Oh, no, that's absolutely fine. You carry on. You carry on. You publish newspaper front pages encouraging the British public to hate judges. That's so dangerous. That's the stuff of dictatorships and Brexit! Oh, no, that's fine. Carry on. Let's have another front page. But Brexit got done, you see. And so did everyone who voted for it. But as I say, that day hasn't quite dawned yet. And that's why the Owen Paterson scandal has landed in the way that it's landed. And because the Daily Mail is a pivotal piece of this jigsaw. The fact that it's now edited by somebody who was bright enough to realise that Brexit was a very bad idea is perhaps part of the process. Because the Telegraph haven't turned, the Telegraph can't turn. They're so far down the rabbit hole that they will never be able to get out again. They can't turn round. But the Mail has changed its tack. The Mail has changed its tune. Because they understand what's happened. You can't file any of this under Get Brexit Done. Why did Owen Paterson take £500,000 off a couple of companies that he was lobbying for? Brexit! Pardon? Kwasi Kwarteng, yesterday, asked whether Boris Johnson had ever done anything in his entire career that could be seen as upholding standards in public life. I swear to you this is true. You're going to think I've made it up. Has he done anything in his entire career, on the beep, that could be described as upholding standards in public life? Do you know what Kwasi Kwarteng said? I swear to you this is true. I should have worked this out yesterday. I'm so sorry. Do you know what he said? He got Brexit done. And that is the sound of a blindfold falling apart in real time. Kwasi Kwarteng, Secretary of State for Business, put in the Cabinet by Boris Johnson. Has the Prime Minister done anything in his entire life that could be described in any way whatsoever as upholding or promoting standards in public life? Kwasi Kwarteng's answer? You can hear his soul slipping down the plug hole as he says it. Well, he got Brexit done. And that is why we are exactly where we are.